Hello, my friends. It is a Tuesday night, so I had work today, but look at me filming a video on the day that I had work. The camera position, bit weird today because my tripod is precariously balanced over my sleeping cat, but despite that, this is going to be my May wrap-up. I read 26 things in May, 26 books, and I really wanted to make this like a quick 10-minute video. Physically not possible, so I'm going to just try and get through this as succinctly as possible, and I hope you guys stay along for the ride. So the first book I read this month is a new release called Kitten. It is a literary fiction about this girl who kind of becomes obsessed with her boyfriend's cat. She's kind of lost in life. She's very childlike. She likes being taken care of, and she kind of projects this need to be cared for onto this cat. Very strange book. I actually didn't enjoy it. I'm so grateful that I got the arc through NetGalley, but was not my kind of book. I didn't really like it, but you might. The next book I picked up was We Had to Remove This Post. This is a very, very short little book about a woman who works as a content moderator and how she doesn't even realize how the things that she's viewing every day are changing her as a person. It was very quick, very deliberate, very interesting. I did enjoy this a lot more than I thought, so I will be keeping this. Next, I picked up Eros by Zoe Tarakis. This was such a good collection. So I think there are 4 or 5 queer Greek myth retellings in this collection, and I loved all of them so much. If you guys don't know, Zoe was in Talk to Me. I will insert picture of Zoe in Talk to Me here. Zoe is a trans actor now slash writer, and I was so impressed. Like, this was a debut, and everything about this book was so beautiful. I relished these stories. Like, they were so delicious, and I would highly recommend this collection if you like Greek mythology. The next book I picked up is 1 and 4 by Lucinda Berry. Unfortunately, this was an absolute miss for me. I'm starting to think that maybe Lucinda Berry isn't the author for me, because the books of hers that I love I absolutely adore, but the books of hers that don't hit are just so completely pointless to me. This follows a therapist who agrees to work on a reality show that's kind of similar to Big Brother, except if it was rehab. So it's a bunch of celebrities who are trying to detox, and the therapist is there to kind of help them along this process until one of the patients, one of the people in this house, turns up dead, and it becomes a murder investigation, and the therapist gets dragged into it. Did the camera angle change? That's probably because my cat decided to get up and the entire tripod just fell onto my face. As I was saying, I read this book in the last 4 weeks, and I remember the ending because of how ridiculous it was. And I'm not even going to get into the spoilers because that is not the video for it, but I would not recommend. I think I'm actually done with Lucinda Berry's new releases. Kind of hurts to say because some of her books have made me cry with how well they've been written, and I'm just not vibing with her writing anymore. So I'm actually unhauling this book. It is saying bye-bye to my bookshelves. Next, we have Midnight at the Houdini by Delilah S. Dawson. I love Delilah S. Dawson's adult horror. Absolutely obsessed. She's one of my newest favorite authors. I did enjoy this, okay? So this is a YA fantasy following a girl who enters this hotel and finds out that this hotel, or like the realm that this hotel sits in, is magical. It is timeless. She meets another teenage boy there, and they both kind of work together to try and help her escape the Houdini, because if she does not find a way out of the hotel by midnight, she'll be stuck there forever like he is. And it was quite the interesting book. I really liked the sense of whimsy and nonsense that this hotel encaptured. It was a very beautiful story to read. However, I don't want to keep it. Like, it's so frustrating because, like, this is a good book. I enjoyed it. I really like the characters. The story was pretty interesting. The setting and the descriptions of the hotel were absolutely beautiful. But I'm literally never going to go, like, pick this up in my life. I'm never going to sit there and think, holy shit, I really want to reread Midnight at the Houdini, and it's a shame. I really hope that if I donate this book, someone else will pick it up and will find an amazing amount of love for it the way I have, but I just have so many books that I can't justify keeping a book that I enjoyed but that I'm never going to look at again. So unfortunately this one is also being unhauled, but it is not because it was bad. It was just because I don't need to keep it. Someone else can have it. I would be happy for someone else to read this book. So years and years ago, I read The Roanoke Girls and I fucking loved it. So I ended up buying another book by the author, Amy Engel, years ago, and then just never picked it up. So I decided to read it this month. It is called The Familiar Dark, and this was a very, very depressing book. We follow a woman who, on the very first page, is told by her brother, who is a cop, that her daughter has been found murdered. Not like died, not got into an accident, has fully been murdered along with her best friend. Now, these two girls are like 12 years old, and initially this woman is obviously distraught and in a complete mess, like stuck in a depression. And then she thinks, fuck that, I'm going to find out who did this to my baby girl, and I'm going to get my motherfucking revenge. It was such a good book. Not only was the characterization of a mother dealing with this grief done beautifully, but it also really depicted mother-daughter relationships through different stages of life and how they change and how sometimes they don't change at all. And yeah, this book, I did get very, very teary-eyed towards the end. It made me feel a lot of things, so I love this, would highly recommend. It is quite the short thriller, but I really, really enjoyed it. So that is staying on my shelves. I then picked up A Pack for Autumn by Amelia Emerson. This was a cover buy entirely. I've never read a book set in the Omegaverse, and after this, I don't think I ever will again. This follows a woman named Olive. She moves to this small town as the new lighthouse keeper, and in this town there are 3 alphas. Are they all alphas? I don't even remember. There are 3 guys who decide that they want her to join their pack, I think, and it was all very surface level, and it is like part of the cozy verse. It is a cozy Omegaverse book. I thought maybe this could be a new thing for me. Unfortunately, it just did not hit for me. I found it so incredibly cringy. I'm so sorry. If you're into the Omegaverse, if you like a cozy, spicy romance, I'm so happy for you. This book in particular, I was just like cringing at, it was just so, not even just the spice, just like the way these characters were literally like gagging for each other. I was like, guys, take a fucking step back. I just did not like this. This is getting on hold. Hopefully someone else appreciates it, because I really, really, truly did not appreciate it, and just was not my kind of book. Okay, cool. Next I read, oh, this was a really good book. Next I read The Good Girl by, I think it's Michelle Dunn. This follows a woman. Everyone thinks that she is lovely. Like, she's had a really shitty childhood. She's gone through some incredible traumas, but she's such a lovely, kind, thoughtful person. Except while they're all thinking that, she's kind of a serial killer who has a man hidden in her basement that she's been torturing for days. This book kind of goes into her backstory, how her and her younger sister grew up, how they got to where they are in their lives currently, and what has led to this woman becoming a murderer. And it was, for the most part, just a genuinely sad book about the cycles of trauma, how hurt people, and it was just like cyclical familial abuse, and it was so sad and so horrific. And while I think it's a good book and I think it was entertaining, it wasn't enough for me to go and purchase it myself. Like, I'm glad I listened to the audiobook through my library, and I would recommend it, but it's not something that I need on my shelf, so I'm glad that I read it electronically. Then I picked up The Cold House by A.G. Slatter. This is just a little horror novella that I found at QBD a couple of weeks ago, and it did not go the way that I thought it was going to. This follows a woman whose husband and son were tragically killed in a car accident, or were hit by a truck, I think. And this woman loses her purpose in life. She doesn't know what to do, where to go. She finds out that her husband had a lot of money and that he was potentially hiding a lot of secrets from her, but her husband's lawyer gets in contact and says, look, you obviously need to get out of the house. You need to take a break. Let me find a place for you to go away for a couple of weeks, regroup, and refresh yourself. So she goes and stays in this big, creepy kind of house in this weird, folksy town that has all these weird superstitions, and she starts thinking that she's hearing her daughter's voice in the middle of the night at this house that she's staying in. It was not what I expected, but in the best way possible. And I think this author has a new book coming up possibly this month, so I'm going to do some research, because this was just, for how quick it was, like, it really packed a punch, and the ending was just so so satisfying, so highly recommend. Then I picked up another short little horror novella called Follow Me to Ground, and this book has been on my TBR for so long, but I've stayed away from it because I've heard people say that this is very much like a fever dream. I really loved this. This follows a girl and her father, and it's quite clear from the start they're not quite human. They have the ability to heal people, to literally open up their bodies and find what is plaguing them, whatever their illness is, and literally pluck the sickness out of their body. And if people are really, really ill, they bury them in the soil on their property, and they bury them in the ground. And when they dig them back up, their sickness is gone. So they have this incredible healing ability that all the people in the town rely on, but are also terrified of. The main story of this book is when the girl meets a young man that she's interested in, and she kind of starts venturing out into the town with him and gets kind of caught up in some of his family dramas. And this was just so interesting. I just feel like this would make a really cool indie horror movie. I did see some of the things towards the end like coming from a mile away, but I still enjoyed the journey. So I would recommend if you're into kind of like weird sort of horror. I liked it a lot. Next, I picked up Stitched Up in You by Jacqueline Hyde. So this is the third book in the Monster Bay series. Now, the first book was amazing, like 4.5 stars. It was so fun, so cutesy, loved it. The second book really annoyed me. I hated both the main characters, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't have purchased the rest of the books in the series. And then I read this book, and this book is like ultimate enemies to lovers, fun, good times. We are following Frank. Frank's company has been hacked into, and because of this hack, he has lost like a couple $1 million and a lot of really important product. And he tracks down the hacker, and it is little Miss Bernadette here, little Miss Redhead, little Miss Cutie Pie, and he basically kidnaps her and is like, you're going to stay with my company and work to try and find out where all my products have gone, and you're gonna get me back my millions of dollars that you've cost me. And obviously she doesn't want to be a prisoner, so she fights back. Things get aggressive and very like tense between the two of them. And then Frank is like, obviously she's not doing well in this corporate setting, so I'm just going to whisk her away to my private mansion. And obviously sparks fly. I really, really enjoyed this book. If you don't know, the Monster Bay series are all interconnected standalones. We have seen Frank in the previous 2 books, and Frank is a very, very difficult person to get along with, okay? I fucking hated him in the first 2 books. I was like, I'm not going to enjoy his book because he's such a fucking piece of shit. But then in this book, the way he softens when he's with Bernadette, it's delicious. It was so sweet, and I actually really love this book. I just think that the main characters in the second book, like they might have just irked me personally. Maybe other people won't mind the second book. I despise the main characters. I thought they were so mind-numbingly stupid, but I love these 2. So this is staying on my shelves. Now I need to talk about maybe my most disappointing book of the month. This might have been the biggest disappointment, and that hurts me so much to say. I decided to pick up He Started It by Samantha Downing. I have been on a mission to try and read all of the thrillers that have been sitting on my shelves for years. This author is one of the ones where I read My Lovely Wife, the first book, and then bought the rest of her books and then never read them. This book follows 3 siblings who are going on a road trip to basically earn their inheritance from their grandfather's will. Love that idea. Love that concept. I have siblings myself. Very intriguing. Along this road trip, we find out that they're actually recreating a road trip that they all went on in their childhood, but it was not like a fun family road trip. Like, it was weird. The vibes were weird. Grandpa was weird. And something happened at the end of the road trip, which was very big and very traumatic and no one talks about. Not going to spoil that for you. What I am going to say is the ending of this book was so fucking stupid. Like, this entire chunk, 4.5 stars. Easy. Thought it was fun. Thought it was a bit camp. Thought some of the twists were a bit outrageous, but in a fun way. This last little chunk here, I mean, this is probably like 20 pages. Made no fucking sense. It was ridiculously fucking stupid. Not just like from like, oh, why would you end a thriller that way? Just like the character, like the logic of the characters wasn't there. I'm not going to talk about specifics, but there's a character who thinks that the law is going to be on their side. It just wouldn't. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, nothing made sense at the end of this book. This went from what was going to be a 4.5-star read down to a 2-star read. And I wish I could justify keeping it, but every time I look at this book, I'm just reminded of how much fun I was having and then how angry the ending made me. This is getting unhauled. But I am going to continue reading Samantha Downing's books because I think that she's got something. I just don't think that ending was the vibe. Next, I worked my way through Night Shift by Stephen King. So this is one of his earlier short story collections. I think there's like 26 short stories in this. So because it's a short story collection, it's a little hard to review, but I will just point out some of my favorite stories. I really enjoyed The Boogeyman. I really enjoyed Sometimes They Come Back. The Ledge was a very fun short story. The Lawnmower Man was interesting, but kind of cray-cray. Quitters Inc., so much fun. I Know What You Need, weird. This is just such a strong collection of horror because there's so much variances in the stories. There's like creature features, there's like serial killer, there's obsessed stalker, there is like real life horrors, like dealing with addiction and a dying relative and a murder. It's just, there was so many different types of horror in this that were very interesting. And even the stories where like I typically don't like creature features, I was still somewhat intrigued. So I think this is a pretty strong horror collection. I am going to be keeping this one. But then I also, alongside that, was reading Carrie by Stephen King, just because it is like a classic. And I feel like at some point I needed to tick this off my bucket list. And while this was not a bad read, it's a very short book, got through it very quickly. I actually think that the movie adaptations I've seen of Carrie are strong enough that I don't necessarily feel like the book is better, which is so blasphemous to say, but I actually think the movies that I've seen and the book are pretty like on the same level, pretty much equal as to how I would rank them. So I don't really want to keep this book. Like I said, it was a fine book. It just didn't add anything to the story of Carrie that I didn't already know having watched the movies. So I am going to unhaul this one. I think I only recently bought this at Savers, but you know, I read it, that has happened, and now it is going to go back to Savers and someone else can find it and love it, but that person is not me. Next, I picked up The Other Brother by Tierney Page. Now, I very specifically picked this one up because next Thursday, so today's Tuesday, Thursday week, I'm actually going to meet Tierney Page in person. She has got a book event in Brunswick next Thursday, so I will be going to this book talk. I will be hopefully getting my book signed and I will get to take a picture with her. So I thought, holy fuck, I actually need to read her books now because I've owned them since they came out. So The Other Brother is the first book in the London Hearts series that she's come out with. This follows a woman who is engaged and she thinks that her entire future is set up for her. But then she finds out that her fiancé has been doing some dodgy shit on the side. Some secret stuff that he's kept from her. And she ends up basically being comforted by the other brother. The brother that she's always felt a spark with but has never been able to act on. And this kind of just follows them. This was a fine book. I had no problems with this book, no issues. I think I gave it a 3.5 star. Like, it was better than just an average romance. My only and probably biggest issue with this book is that there were no stakes. There was nothing really preventing these characters from being together, except for some warped sense of what's right. But that wasn't a strong enough reason for me for these characters to literally fight so hard not to be together. I liked the characters. I thought their romance was sweet. And I mean, they were a really, really cute couple. I just felt like they made things a little bit more difficult than they needed to be. But I would still recommend it. It was like a nice introduction to Tierney's writing style. And I am keeping this and I'm getting it signed next week. Next I picked up I Can Be a Better You by Taryn Fisher. I think this has since been republished as Bad Mummy or vice versa. And this was just such a typical thriller. I've had an up and down relationship with Taryn Fisher's writing. Sometimes her books like a killer, love them, 5 star. Other times like this, they just fall so flat for me. So we are following a woman named Fig. It's a fig on the cover. And she lost a child a couple of years ago and has obviously never really gotten over it. And one day she's at the park and she sees a little girl and she decides that that little girl is her child. The child that she lost has been born and is this child. She's a bit, not quite right. And she basically follows the child home, moves in next door to the child, befriends the child's parents, and like infiltrates herself into their life. And it is just like so typical, like crazy lady, like hysteric lady. Um and like any other thriller you've ever read where it's a woman trying to infiltrate another woman's life, that was this. Very, very basic. Nothing in this surprised me. All three of the main characters, so we do follow Fig, we follow the woman next door, we follow the man next door's POVs. They were all terrible, unlikable characters. Generally just terrible fucking people. But even when they weren't being terrible, they were still incredibly boring and made stupid fucking decisions. I don't even want to get into this. I don't really want to get into this, but it's like a minor spoiler, so I guess I'll do my spoilery thing where the screen will be black and white until I stop talking about spoilers. So, volume down if you care about this book, but I don't recommend that you do care about this book. The entire time, we're kind of led to believe that Fig and her husband have separated, okay? She doesn't talk about him. Obviously, she doesn't talk about him because he's not important to her. Like, I get that. I get the point of this. But it was very strange that, like, through 95% of the book, we see the wife next door ask after Fig's husband one time. And I think one conversation between the husband and wife is, wow, I wonder why we don't see Fig's husband more, okay? We get 2 references to Fig's husband throughout 90% of the book. And in both of those instances, I was like, maybe Fig has been lying to them and has been telling them, oh yeah, my husband's at home, and he hasn't been there. In the last 10%, we find out that she's been living with her husband this entire time. It was so wild. I don't know how to explain to you. Like, Fig is constantly at her neighbor's house. She's babysitting their child. She's fucking cooking them dinner. And she's doing shit for them. Like, she's with her neighbors all the fucking time. You're telling me that her husband was at home alone by himself next door and didn't ever come over to say hi? Didn't ever come over for dinner? Like, when Fig is constantly having dinner with her neighbors, the husband was just at home eating by himself. It was bizarre. And I understand the point. I understand that Taryn Fisher was doing this to show that, especially from Fig's POV, her husband is so relevant to her that we don't see him on the page at all. I understand why she did that. But from a reader's perspective, it almost felt like Taryn was trying to throw in a plot twist of like, oh, but her husband was there the entire time and I didn't tell you that. But it just felt cheap. It felt like Taryn forgot to show him throughout the book, but having him in the book at the end suited her, so she decided to quickly chuck in the fact that he'd been there the whole time. Very, very strange, very bizarre. So I wouldn't really recommend this book. I am annulling it. That was a very long-winded explanation of why this book annoyed me so much. But let's get into a book that did not annoy me. Well, it did, but like in a really, really fun way. I got the audiobook of this book from my library. I finished it in a single sitting. I got home from work one day, I started listening to it. Before I went to bed, I finished the book and I purchased this on Amazon. The Caretaker. This book. Okay, I did not have high hopes for this book. That is why I listened to the audio from my library before I purchased it, because I did not really enjoy We Used to Live Here. I thought it was a little bit too convoluted, didn't make a lot of sense to me. I struggled to visualize what was actually going on. Didn't enjoy it, had very low expectations for this. This book was so much fucking fun. This book was like it felt like a creepypasta, but like in the best way possible, if that makes any sense. We are following a woman named Macy. Macy is supporting herself and her younger sister, and she is very poor. She's struggling for money, she needs help. She applies for a job, which is a 3-day position over a weekend that pays thousands to be a caretaker. Everything is well. She's like, how could I literally turn down this job? I can't turn this job down. However, there are a lot of rules when it comes to this caretaking position. And let's just say that Macy is not very good at following the rules, and every time she breaks the rules, there is a consequence that adds more rules to her list of rules to follow, and she keeps on not following the rules, and shit gets chaotic. When I tell you, the last page of this book had me chuckling maniacally. I read the last page, or like listened to the last page, and I was like, it was one of those reactions. And if a book can end with that kind of reaction for me, it was a good time. So I would highly recommend, especially if you didn't enjoy We Used to Live Here, I think you might enjoy this more. If you disliked We Used to Live Here because you thought it was convoluted, didn't make a lot of sense, you weren't really sure what the fuck was going on, this book is not that. This book is a lot clearer to me and a lot more fun, so I'm keeping this. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys do too. If you do, or if you did enjoy this book, just let me know. Thanks. Next, I picked up The Taking of Annie Thorne by C.J. Tudor. I think this was also published as The Hiding Place, but this is the UK edition, I believe. This book was really good. I read The Chalkman by this author last year. I was not impressed. I finished The Chalk Man and I was like, what the fuck was the point? Like, I didn't know how to explain the plot of The Chalk Man. I know how to explain the plot of this book. This book follows a man named Joe, and we follow Joe moving back to his childhood town, and he takes on a position as a teacher, and basically right before he's moved back to town, a woman murdered her son and then killed herself. And everyone thinks it's very strange that Joe's shown up right after this murder, and then we get some POVs from the past and what actually occurred in Joe's childhood. What occurred was one day his sister Annie went missing. Thankfully she came back, but when she came back she was just different. She wasn't the same Annie who left. And does that sound ominous to you? I hope it does. I don't really want to tell you much more than that. All I'm going to say is it is about Joe trying to figure out why this woman killed her son and then herself, and if that has any connection to his sister going missing and coming back different. It was such an interesting book. I could tell you a book that this really, really reminded me of, but I feel like that would be a spoiler, so I'm not going to say anything, and I haven't read this other book, so I can't really compare. All I'm going to say is this did not go the way I thought it would, and I mean that in the best way possible. This book, and a lot of things about this book hurt. There are a lot of moments where I just felt so bad for Joe. Like, Joe cannot catch a break. He has not been able to catch a break since his childhood, and this book is just like shit piling on Joe. But I actually really enjoyed this book, so I'm going to keep it, surprisingly. I really didn't think CJ Tudor was going to be the author for me, but this book was good. It actually really, really surprised me. Next, I think we have maybe my favorite read of the month. It is a new release. It is Greedy by Kelly Kazumi. We are following Ed. Ed is in a lot of trouble because Ed has a gambling addiction and he owes a lot of very bad people a lot of money. One day he sees this job for a chef, a private chef for a reclusive billionaire, and he applies for the job and he gets it. But this billionaire is less interested in his skill as a chef and more interested in his willingness to try new things. If that doesn't tell you where this book is going, I don't know what will. This book was really fun. I've said it so many fucking times. I love cooking horror. I love food horror. I love horror set in and around restaurants with chefs and food critics. Like, I love all that shit. This made me want to go to a 3 Michelin star restaurant and eat lots of tiny little meals made of like really expensive ingredients. Also, the ending kind of just made me sad, but I really enjoyed this book. This was a really fast read for me, so highly recommend if you like food horror. So because I'd read The Other Brother and I want to have read all 3 books in this trilogy before meeting Tierney, I decided to pick up The Sweet Secret, and I really, really liked this book. So in this book we are following Gemma. So she is the second of the women in this like little friendship trio, and she's like the sexually adventurous one. She's kind of the free spirit. She just has fun, doesn't take anything too seriously except the love she has for her friends and her job. And she's about to go into a meeting one day with who could be a very important client when she meets this guy, and they have like a sort of meet cute where they're both really sassy towards each other but obviously very attracted to each other. Gemma then finds out that this guy, his name is Max, and he's actually one of her best friend's brothers who she's never met. Like, in all their years of friendship, she's just never met Anna's brother Max. But when Anna finds out that Max and Gemma are working together and Gemma's like, hey, your brother's kind of hot, Anna's one rule is, please do not have sex with my brother. Please leave my brother alone. And that's well and good, except the chemistry between Gemma and Max is so real. And they are both very aware that anything they do with each other will eventually destroy Anna's heart. So hence The Sweet Secret, they decide that they're just going to kind of see where things go and keep it on the down low. I really, really love this. Like, The Other Brother, like I said, it was cute, but it was very safe. There were actual stakes in this. Like, these 2 people kind of were willing to jeopardize their relationship with their best friend / sister for each other. And to me, those stakes felt a little bit more real, a little bit more serious. Like, there was an actual person standing between them being together. So yeah, and I don't know if it's because this was like a little bit longer, so it gave me a little bit more time to care about these characters, but I definitely enjoyed this one more than the other brother. So I have such high hopes for The Player's Promise, which is the last book in the trilogy. I am going to hopefully read it this weekend before the event on Thursday. But yeah, I really, really love this. I would say, honestly, if you were like me and you finished The Other Brother and were kind of like, like it was good, but I don't know how I'm, like, if I want to continue with the series, highly, highly recommend continuing with the series, because the second book was, like, I loved it a lot. Moving on, I then picked up An Unwanted Guest by Sherry LaPena. This is a book I've had on my shelves for so fucking long, and while I have read another book by Sherry and I did not like it, I kept this one on my shelves because it follows a bunch of people going to stay at a hotel, and they get stuck at the hotel because of a snowstorm, and then one by one everyone starts to die. The one by one trope, I must say, is my favorite. I used to call it like books inspired by And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I think I'm just going to call this trope the one by one, where everyone gets killed off one by one. Anyway, I think this book was fun. Really enjoyed the setup. I really liked some of the relationships these characters built by being stuck in this traumatic situation. But once again, the ending I just didn't buy it, okay? Obviously, people are dying one by one, so crazy spoiler ahead, there's a murderer in the hotel, in their midst, and again, this is an actual kind of mid-spoiler, the murderer gets caught by the most ridiculous thing. I'm not going to say, like, how they get caught or, like, what happens, but I read the page and I was like, oh, that's it. Like, that's not a red herring. That's the solution to this. Oh, okay. No, I don't think so. So this is going to kindly get on hold. I hope someone out there in the west of Melbourne finds this book and enjoys it, because I surely did not. Next, I read Strangers in the Villa by Robin Harding. Guys, I have read every single book Robin Harding has ever published, and sometimes they're like completely average thrillers, and sometimes they hit hard. This book, I feel, hit quite hard. I enjoyed this so much. I don't know what the fuck was happening with the haters. I read that book and it was like so mid, so I didn't have high hopes for Strangers in the Villa. All I'm going to say, as far as vibes for this book, Speak No Evil. It gave me Speak No Evil vibes for the first, I would say, like 60%. I was just like getting vibes of Speak No Evil. I was like, oh, there are two couples cohabitating one place in a strange country, and the vibes are very fucking uncomfortable. So we are following a married couple. They have just purchased a villa in Spain because their marriage is on the rocks. The husband cheated and he was like, babe, I love you, like we can make this work, let's just like move to a new country, like we'll get a fresh start. And Girly Pop is like, I guess, like let's see what happens. So they're living in their villa and Girly Pop is fucking bored. Like, she doesn't trust her husband, she doesn't want to be intimate with her husband, she kind of doesn't want anything to do with him. And then one day this young Australian couple comes a knocking on the door and says, g'day mates, our fucking van just broke down, do you mind if we use your telephone? And Girly Pop wife is like, oh my god, other people. She's like, please come in, have a drink, stay for dinner, let's chat, stay the night, stay for the next couple of days. Girly Pop is so desperate for company that isn't her husband that she invites these fucking strangers into her house. And then things get weird, because Mr. Cheating Husband is very suspicious of these two Aussies. He's like, their energy is off. Suspicious. And this was a really fun read. I don't think I'm going to purchase this to have on my shelves physically, but it was such a fun ride. It was just really... And like, there were moments towards the end where I was like, this is all like a little bit ridiculous, because like people are just saying things with no proof and no evidence. But then when other things were confirmed, I was like, oh, well, this changes everything. So if that sounds interesting to you, highly recommend you pick it up. I mean, if someone bought this for me as a gift, I wouldn't be rejecting the gift. I just don't know if I want to spend my own money on this book, but would still recommend, especially if you can find it at a library or something like that. I would recommend this book. It was a fun time. I enjoyed. Then I picked up a book I have actually read before, so this was a reread for me, which I haven't been doing that much this year, and it is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. This is a graphic novel about Alison's life growing up with her father. So this one focuses on her relationship with her dad, and as she's writing this book, we find out that her dad has died. She suspects that it might have been suicide, but there is no proof that it was suicide. It could have just been him not checking both ways before crossing the street. But she, explores a lot of her grief over losing her father, and sometimes the fact that she doesn't grieve him at all. They had a very tricky relationship, and it was quite an interesting reread, because when I first read this for uni, I don't think I actually cared about what I was reading. I think I was just looking at the pictures, to be honest. This was quite sad. There is a couple of things in this book I wanted to know more about, especially the father's time going to court. That was quite interesting to me. I would have loved to read a couple more chapters on that because I'm a nosy bitch. But for the most part, like, this isn't like the book for me. I do think this would probably work more for a queer person. But as I always say on this channel, I'm straight as the dick.
Straight as a dick.
So this book wasn't really for me. I am going to unhaul it, but in unhauling it, I hope that someone else finds it and maybe it'll do more for them than it did for me. Next, I read The Divorce by Miss Frida McFadden. Guys, why do I keep doing this to myself? Like, I used to love Frida's books because I'd only read a few of them, but every time I read a new Frida McFadden book, I slowly lose more interest in Frida McFadden. Like, sorry to spoil Frida McFadden's entire shtick to you guys, but I don't know how many more times I can read about her setting someone up to be the good guy, only to pull the plug and switch things up and make them the bad guy. Like, she does it in every single fucking book now. Like, it is very frustrating, and just, I don't know, man. So in this book, we are following a woman, a bit of a dumb woman, and she picks her son up from school, and she drives home. And when she gets there, the garage door doesn't open the way it usually does for her car. She's like, strange. So she gets out of her car, and she goes to unlock her front door, and her key doesn't fit in the keyhole. And she's like, that's also strange. Her husband opens the door, and he's like, oh my god, babe, like, hi, how you going? And he's like, hey son, can you go up to your bedroom? I need to talk to your mum privately. And he's talking to his wife, and he's basically like, look, babe, I'm renovating the house, but I wanted to surprise you. She's like, so why did you change the locks? And he's like, oh, well, I didn't want you to see the renovations. Plus, like, I don't want the builders to have the key to our house. And she was like, but why wouldn't you do that after the renovations are done? Because, like, now they have a copy of our new key. She's like, okay, sus. And he's like, so I'm going to need you to go move into my parents' old apartment for a couple of weeks. And I've packed your bags. You just need to drive there. Go stay there tonight. I'll meet you there tomorrow. And she's like, I mean, that's kind of weird, but okay, that's a good idea. So she goes. And then, lol jokes, the next day he's like, yeah, this was all a ruse. I just wanted to move you out of the house because we're getting a divorce. You're telling me that she let him move her out of her house? It was crazy to me. The way that this woman is, like, jumping through all these hoops to try and justify everything he's doing. She's like, oh, he wouldn't change the locks on me. Oh, he did. Oh, but it's only because of the builders. Well, that's kind of weird. Oh, but it's only because he doesn't want me to see the renovations. And that's because he wants to surprise me. And that's because he's such a good husband. And I'm over here like, girly pop, you're so stupid. That's the setup for this book. Basically, it's about a woman who's being told her husband wants to divorce her, and her being like, well, we're not going to get a divorce. That's the entire book. Sorry to spoil it for you. So fucking glad I've put myself in a Frida McFadden book buying ban. So glad I didn't buy this book and just listen to the library copy, because Frida, what are you doing, girl? Like, I am so happy for Frida. Go get your coin, but also I need to stop myself from reading her books. Not doing me any fucking amount of good. So let's move on to my last 2 books of the month. These, you know what? No, we're not going to get into it. We're just going to. The Kiss of Deception by Ms. Mary E. Pearson. I have not read a romantasy, a fantasy, a series that has like a lot of fucking books in a row in a very, very long time. And I decided if I'm going to dip my toe back into romantasy, because I have so much romantasy on my shelves right now, I would start with a YA, a simple YA 3-book series. This book, The Kiss of Deception, follows our main girl, Leah. Leah is a princess. Leah is about to be married off to a prince that she's never met before, but on the morning of her wedding, she says, fuck this, I'm going out. She leaves. She abandons ship. She gets the fuck out of the palace. She runs. And she runs to this cute little town with her bestie Pauline, and they start working at a bar, and they're like living their best small town country life. However, she has left a prince at the altar, and he has decided he is going to track her down. So we are following a prince who's hunting her down. We are also following an assassin from a different kingdom who has been tasked with slitting her throat. So we also follow the assassin who is hunting her down. So in this book, we are following Leah's POV, Leah the princess, right? We get POVs from the assassin, we get POVs from the prince, and in Leah's POV, she's like, oh, these two lovely boys, Rafe and Caden. As the reader, you do not know, or you don't get confirmation of who Rafe is and who Caden is until halfway through the book, a bit more than halfway through the book. And I'm gonna throw it out there, guys, I was fucking wrong. I was so convinced that I knew. I was like, that one is the prince and that one is the assassin, and if I'm wrong, then like that's crazy. It was crazy. I got it wrong. So yeah, I don't think I want to say anything more than that. What I will say is Leah, the prince, and the assassin, each of them are from a different kingdom. So each of them is from one of the 3 main kingdoms in this land. And let's just say that the kingdoms are not all getting along. So it's a little bit tense. There is a little bit of kingdom drama and politics going on in the background. And this book was really fun. It was a really nice, slow introduction back into romantasy. The next and final book that I read in the month of May is The Heart of Betrayal, which is the sequel to The Kiss of Deception. The second book in the Remnant Chronicles. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you what this book is about, because if I told you what this book was about, it would spoil the first book. All I'm gonna say is, I really liked this book. It definitely gave me some Shadow and Bone vibes. It definitely made me emotional, and I really liked it. I'm trying so hard not to spoil anything, but genuinely, I've had these books on my shelves for so fucking long, and I kept on thinking, like, if I don't read these books in 2026, they're gonna get on hold. And if I had on hold these without reading them, I would have been making a grave mistake. So these books are staying on my shelves forever, if that gives you any indication of how much I fucking liked them. I did also read the 3rd and final book in the trilogy, but that is something that you're gonna have to wait to see in my June wrap up. And I'm not gonna tell you how I feel. Is the 3rd book good? I don't know. Do you know? So I have since read, obviously, the 3rd book in the series, and I have read another book this month, and they have both been amazing. So happy June. 2 books down on the 2nd of June. Fucking killing it. Guys, I don't want to know how long this video is, and I hope you guys had a great May reading month. Tell me your favorite book that you read, and I will see you later. Bye. Bye.